I don't know what I'm doing when I pick them. I don't know if I'm actually putting my character in the situation right this minute. I don't know if I am giving you license to alter a roll's results so that the stated result occurs.
Well, maybe it needs to be then stated better how they do it. Because I typically, for a book, there are three things that it can be. One is a goal or an anti-goal if it's a concession, something that takes you towards your destiny or something away. It can be a situation that deals with your character or doesn't deal with your character, such as, strangers arrived in town.
Right. Can I ask right here? There is part of the ambiguity that I'm dealing with. A lot of the time you talk about paths and concessions as they relate to destiny. And yet, you also say, for example, that a path is what you think will make your character's soul grow stronger, and it may or may not be related to destiny. So already I'm finding the criteria kind of bumping into one another and not quite gelling.
Well, that's probably just me in the writing.
Right. So which is it? Is it about making my character grow stronger, or does it have? Is it better to have destiny be independent, and then paths and concessions are themselves, or is it better to have destiny be like the lodestone of, or the pole star for all of the others?
Yeah, that's kind of like when it comes to goals. That's how we write it. So let's say that your destiny is, as we mentioned before, to die in a ditch. So one of your paths, even though it's not what your character wants, but one of the paths may be, it may be something like, like say there's some asshole in town or whatever, so-and-so confronts me or whatever when it comes to that, knowing that can be an option. So see, you have a concession, something that keeps you away from that. And it might be something like, a friend arrives in town. Well, so you have so-and-so confronts me. You have a friend arrives in town. So the Doomsmith just kind of, as you're playing through the scene, you have your guy come along. He goes to this tavern. He's hanging out. He's doing his normal thing. He's had a couple of drinks. And then what I'll do sometimes, it depends, because there's a lot of different tools or methods that I use. But I might be like, okay, cool, it's time for a choice, and I'll just say over the game. It's the end of the night. You've had a few drinks. You're ready for bed. You can have one more drink, and a friend that some friend from the past is going to wander into this bar, someone you haven't seen in a long time. Or you can say, no, I've had enough. You pick up your sword and you walk home, and on the way, there's going to be, this guy's going to come and talk to you. Tell me what happens. So if the guy, if he's like, well, I have plenty of resources, I don't need my concession, I don't need to rest, I'll walk home. All right, well, maybe you walk home, you miss your friend, he comes in, he sits down, hey, where's John? I'll catch him tomorrow. As you're walking, this guy comes, you've had beef with, he confronts you, you play out the scene. Maybe that leads to combat. Maybe he's had a couple of drinks. Maybe you talk your way out. Maybe you're like, no, I'm tired of you pull a sword. We don't know. That happens in the scene. But by making the choice, just making the choice, it sets up the next part of the scene. So that's one way that I use the books. It's an over-the-table, stop the game, give the choice, present what happens, and then we roll with it.
Okay, but one thing that I'm not seeing in any of that is how destiny is involved, or how am I going to put this? This is going to sound terrible, but
no, it's okay.
At the moment, I'm really finding that although you've got procedures you're comfortable with in play or have worked through in play, they may not actually be in gelled enough form as procedure for anyone else to do it. Mm-hmm. And you may actually be doing multiple things. How am I going to put this? What if Destiny were gone? And I'm not suggesting that. I'm just trying to get your mind thinking about what you actually do as procedure.
Right.
So if you have, because you've got, there's more than one variable here. There's destiny, there's paths, there's concessions, and you also keep bringing up goals. Right? It's like that goal thing just keeps sliding into the phrasing over and over again. And then you say, well, yeah, but it doesn't have to be a goal. So it's like there and not there. It keeps popping up. And I'm like, feel like I'm playing whack-a-mole. Okay, never mind the goal. I know it doesn't count. But you bring it up again. But never mind the goal. It doesn't count. Okay, whack it again. Let's get blunt. We need things that tell us what the character's like, for good or ill. We need things that put the character in situations, and as you say, in some cases that's handled as a metagame choice. That's fine. That's okay. But situations. And that the character or the player can actually think about that in terms of existing resources on their sheet, if they want to. They can even say, look, I'm good on these, I'm low on those, I think I'll go with the path. Or something like that, if they want. I'm not saying they have to, but they might.
Right.
And that's cool. There's a mechanic there that is at least relevant. But you've got things that are what the character's like. You've got things that are what kind of situations might I be in. And then you've got things which are how things might turn out. And if you want all of those there, then I think that's fine. But which ones are what ifs? Which ones are, and now this happens to you? Or, now here you are? And which ones are perhaps better just left for resolution entirely? And also, which ones are pre-play setup? I mean, if I write something down, like one of my concessions is that I'm a stowaway on the merchant ship, I may well be conceiving that if that's exactly where I want to start. And that if you say, okay, you're walking down the street, and I'm like, wait, what? What about my stowaway? And you're like, don't worry, I'll give you a choice sooner or later whereby you might end up as a stowaway. I'm like, no, I wrote stowaway on the merchant ship, right? I want to cope with that concession. I want to cope with its problems. So which is it? Is it a situation that I'm already in? Is it a situation that you're going to give me a choice to jump into?
It's always a choice.
Right.
It's always, you write them down and then it's an upcoming choice.
Right. So then that's kind of tricky because it means things like, how am I going to put this? Then that means that if somebody writes something like stowaway on the merchant ship, and then it's your role as a doomsmith to come up with a circumstance by which they end up that way, that's a whole lot of kind of, I don't know, what's the word I want? Pro forma play. If you turn left down this alley, you're going to end up as a stowaway on the merchant ship. Is that what you want? Okay, I turn left down the alley. Now, I'm going to clock time until I end up stowing away. I mean, see what I mean? I'm kind of playing out stuff that's... I know you probably don't run into that during play. What I'm trying to say is, since I don't know if I'm going or coming when I pick some of these things, I don't know if I'm setting something up. I don't know if... I think it would be a lot more helpful for me in looking at these things, saying, all right, when a player gives me several of these things, which is, I believe, a destiny, 2 paths, and 2 concessions, is the freedom to wiggle these definitions something that you value because you can kind of adjust them, while you prep and play, and this is something you're good at? Or is it something that really ought to be locked down so that when somebody writes a demon attacks, I know what to do with it as
Mhm.
the Doomsmith. I know, or the player knows that to become king is a what if. They can't, and that's why I get a little bit weirded out by things like Tragic Figure, because they seem to completely override the books. It's kind of like, well, if my destiny is to, I don't know, there's a lot of things through things like Tragic Figure that you get from upbringings, and things of ways that you could frame and conceive of stuff in your books, that then, if those are, really solid, then a whole bunch of the roles and consequences of the rules actually become pretty trivial. Because we're not resolving those things by the situations. We're kind of locking them down. I know there must be a way that you have found through this so that you're not railroading people through.
Right.
But it's awfully hard to see it from here. I'm trying hard.
Gotcha.
And it may just be a presentation issue, but I do suggest that the phrase that your categorization of the destinies in books, although it may seem very solid to you, is nowhere near as solid as it is in The Whispering Vault, where nobody has any problem with it at all, and how they're used in play is completely transparent. And in the case of, I was thinking about it, let's say for Destiny, and this is not a suggestion for you, this is a way of me trying to figure out how I would have to say it for it to make sense to me.
Okay.
And maybe it shows that I don't understand them at all. Okay, so that's why I say it's not advice to you, because I might be completely misunderstanding. Let's say destiny is always something that culturally and socially is said about you. This is something that it's not metaphysical. Everybody knows. Someone said it and it stuck. Someone swore at you when you were 10 and it's stuck to you ever since. Everyone says this about you. This is where they, you're going to end up in prison, you little shit. The same thing, the king came through here, 20 years ago. You look just like him. You could be king someday.
I see, yeah.
And it's an opinion, yes, but it's a story weight opinion. And since it's a destiny, we know that this is a significant thing in story terms. You're reading a novel and the first line of the sentence is, everyone always said I looked like King John. And he came through here 20 years ago. As I get older and older and older, I realize that, that this is true. And furthermore, that we've been in civil war for the last 5 years. When the crown prince fell from an orcish arrow. Do you see? You wouldn't even be saying this in the first chapter if this guy's destiny was, will I or won't I become king? Right?
Right.
You wouldn't even be saying it in the first chapter. It would just be like an affectation. But you wouldn't open the book with it. Here, you are. You're opening the book with this. If the book turns out to have nothing to do with him getting the throne, I'm going to be pissed.
Well, it's actually, I didn't even have destinies before. How those came about, it was because a character would have, they would develop this character, and they have the backgrounds, they have their upbringings, and the story develops, and kind of like this, this trigger of what do they wanting the game to be about for this character. So what we found was that people would get, and the thing with the game that we all noticed is about 3-4 sessions in, everything, it's like a giant spider web because of the books. So many things are going on. It feels so alive. It's so like such a large world. You can't focus on everything. So you got to say, okay, here's what I want. And then what we found is like, okay, well, I was wanting this to be about the rise and fall of my family, but I'm over here, saving the princess, in the fire swamp or whatever. And so the idea of the destiny was to say, here's something concrete. No matter what, we're always going to come back to this. Even if we're going on tangents, something is going to be tied to it. We're always going to have a back, and that's how we've kind of used it. But I've actually changed how they work so many times.
Now you see, now this is making a lot of sense, because what I'm seeing is sprawl, conceptual sprawl, and everything you just described makes sense now. That I'm seeing the verbal or textual results of kind of the sprawl of how are we coping with this.